Well, hello friends, welcome back to my channel. We are getting down to business today, if you couldn't tell from my spinning chair and business, digital nomad, business attire. I am super excited to be sharing some of my top tips with you guys when it comes to doing this full time, kind of sharing my own backstory of how I got into this. But we will of course be focusing on being a digital nomad in many different respects. You don't obviously have to be just a travel YouTuber to be able to work from anywhere. But before we get into all the different tips that I have for generating an income online and what to do when you're actually abroad, I thought that I would actually start with the three different categories of being a digital nomad. So the first way is to be a full-time employee at only one company. One thing that COVID has taught us is that a lot of jobs can actually be done remotely. I think for a lot of people, that's actually the best of both worlds because you're not relying on just yourself to bring in income every single month. You do have a sort of security of working for a company that's paying you a monthly salary or an hourly wage while being able to have your own schedule and being able to work from a tropical paradise if you so wish. And the second way to be a digital nomad is the freelancer. This category really is in the middle of the road between being employed by somebody else and working for yourself, where you might have multiple clients. Some might be repeating, some might be one-offs, or maybe you have a more part-time sort of basis for a few different companies. And lastly, the third way to be a digital nomad, and I guess this is my category because this is what I'm doing right now, and that is to be self-employed. If you have been here since the beginning, and thank you, by the way, you'll know that I have had a channel for about 4 or 5 years now, I think it's been, and up until a year and a half, or maybe 2 years, is when I actually started making any kind of income from it. When I finally took the step to do this full time and I did the Russia trip, I had actually saved up as much money as I possibly could before I left, and I was actually doing a few part-time sort of gigs while I was on the road to kind of make ends meet, because my channel was definitely not generating enough income at the beginning of that trip. Thankfully, things have improved a lot since then, and I am able to make a full-time income that I can travel on with just doing YouTube. But keep in mind that this really is all relative to where you live and how much money you spend, because while my channel is doing quite well, I am making quite a bit of money, I wouldn't say that I'm making enough to comfortably live in Canada if I was, doing what I'm doing now. And that really is one of the big reasons of why I travel like I do, because obviously places like Ukraine, Albania, the Philippines, let's say, don't cost nearly as much for your monthly expenses as you would pay in Canada. At the end of the day, what being a digital nomad really comes down to is having skills that you can monetize, that you can do from your computer with an internet connection, and that if you have a boss, that they're okay with it. So to give you some ideas of industries that easily translate to the digital sphere, I actually made a list, so I'm gonna read them off for you, is things like marketing, graphic design, copywriting, administrative work. There's actually so many people I know who are doing that, doing web development, business analytics, online retail, online courses or digital products, and of course all the creative mediums, managing social media like YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and of course if you work for yourself in those mediums, usually you would have to have a larger sort of audience for it to be profitable. And lastly, the most important tip I think I can give anybody who's just starting out on this journey is to really focus on your foundation. While of course having a great personality and having a great network can be very helpful as far as securing a great position or getting clients, at the end of the day, it is going to come down to how well can you actually do what you do, how much knowledge do you have on the topic, how good is your skill set, and are you able to produce the kind of content that your employer or your clients or your audience wants to see. It is very important to always be updating your skill set and not get so complacent in, just taking a course 5 years ago and just relying on that information, because industries are constantly changing, and if you want to stay successful, usually you have to stay with the times. So in saying that, I would really like to thank Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. Skillshare is an online learning community where thousands of people come together to take the next step of their creative journey. Whether you're just starting out or a business professional, Skillshare offers thousands of inspiring classes in topics like marketing, graphic design, photography, and web development. This is the perfect platform for creative hobbyists and digital nomads alike to take their skills to the next level. I have talked about Skillshare numerous times and how I wish that I had come across it when I was earlier in my career, because it would have saved me so much time. A class that I actually really enjoyed taking recently was by Gary Vaynerchuk. It's called Context is Key: Social Media Strategy in a Noisy World. I'm sure most of you know who Gary Vaynerchuk is, and that just shows the caliber of teachers that Skillshare has on their platform. I really enjoyed taking his class on social media presence because it really highlighted how important it is to be concise with your message and what works on different platforms. Another reason of why Skillshare is the perfect sort of platform for digital nomads is that it's curated specifically for learning, meaning that there's no ads on their platform, they're always launching new premium classes, and what's even crazier is that their annual membership is less than $10 a month. So in partnering with Skillshare, I do have a very special offer for you guys, where the first 1,000 people to click the link in my description will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium. It really is amazing just how much you can learn from this platform, so I would really encourage you guys to take this opportunity to give their free trial a go and to empower yourself with new skills and knowledge. So now that I've gone over the different kinds of digital nomads, I thought that I would answer some of your questions that you guys sent in on the community board. So let's get to it. The first question comes from Noah Bolander. He asks, do you save all your money and then make a budget before each of your trips? To answer that, I would say not as much as I used to. Back when I was living in Toronto and my main source of income was waitressing, I did definitely have to save so much money before I went on my trips, and would really have to budget out how much everything is going to cost to make sure that, I wasn't going to be in debt when I came home. Nowadays, I don't specifically save for a specific trip. I just try and save as much money as possible every single month. I'm trying to do at least 20 to 30% outside of what I also have to put away for taxes. And as far as having a budget when I am abroad, I wouldn't say that I have a specific number for every single thing. I just try and stay within the bracket of approximately $50 a day. Some places are going to be a little bit more, some are going to be, a little bit less if I'm staying with somebody. Martin B asks, how do you cope with living out of a suitcase for so long? And what are the choices and compromises you have to make about what you take? So it's very difficult for me to not completely overpack. I do not travel light. I am not there yet. I am not trying to be there yet. I find that for the work that I do, just my little suitcase as a carry-on is all of my equipment. Like, that's 20 pounds of a computer, multiple cameras, a tripod, a drone. Like, I just don't travel light. My equipment really is where I don't like to compromise. So it is with my clothes, my beauty products, and just any kind of personal things that I really try and limit to what I will actually be using right away, because if it's not going to be cold for 3-4 months, I usually will just end up buying brand new winter clothes when the time comes. Another good question that we have here is from Rahul Rasam. Based on your travels so far, what are some of the best cities to live in as a digital nomad in terms of cost of living, internet connectivity, etc.? So I'm going to answer this question based on the current COVID restrictions of what's even open right now, because of course a very popular digital nomad hub is all of Southeast Asia, like Thailand, Vietnam, all those kinds of countries. But right now, a lot of those are either really difficult to get into, like Thailand, or they're not even open. But just going off of my own personal experience of traveling last year and knowing what all is open right now, I would say that probably one of the best places of the world to be in would be in one of the Balkan countries. As far as internet connectivity, I would say that Bulgaria was definitely the best. I didn't have any issues there. It's such a beautiful country, the nicest people, so definitely I think an up and coming digital nomad hub. But Albania, I would also say, would be a very close second. I didn't have too many issues with the internet there, but North Macedonia, even though I loved my time there, was unfortunately so difficult to work in, at least for me, because the upload speeds almost everywhere in the country were so slow. But if fast upload speeds aren't that important to you, I would say that all three of those countries are fantastic options to be spending a lot of time in. Most countries can get in, without a visa and can be there for quite a few months. The cost of living is very low and the people in all three countries are just fantastic. Next question comes from Laura Dawn, asking, in which country do you pay taxes and how when you are not there for 5 to 6 months? So as I said before, I haven't been out of the country for longer than 6 months. So obviously this next trip of mine will be a bit different, but for the time being, I do just file taxes as a regular self-employed Canadian citizen. And for the past few years, even when I had a regular employer, I was just filing online with like TurboTax and still do just their self-employed version. So our next question is from Love Christina Rose. Something I've been curious about lately is, how do you get health insurance coverage? I assume she means travel insurance coverage, and for that I have 2 companies that I would recommend to you guys, not sponsored. The first one is called Safety Wing, and that is much more for budget-friendly sort of travelers, younger travelers, because the coverage that I'm getting is only $40 a month, and it's for $200,000 worth of emergency medical services. Now, if you did want a bit more coverage over $1 million, there's actually 2 companies that I would recommend you guys check out. There is Mondo and there is World Nomads. All right, and the last question that I'm going to answer in this video, I will make follow-up videos in the future, comes from John Sharplin. He asks, how different were the attitudes towards COVID precautions, masks, social distancing, etc. in the countries that you visited this past year compared to Canada? So I will say it was a very interesting experience to be abroad. About half of last year, when the pandemic was announced, I did decide to cancel my other plans and I stayed in Canada for about 5 months. I left the end of July last year. So I would say that the Balkan region as a whole is obviously far less restrictive than Canada has been. Of course, you still had to follow certain kinds of precautions, like wearing a mask in all indoor places. The only thing that was slightly restrictive was that there were curfews by the time that I got to Albania, where in Tirana by 10 p.m. everything closed in the capital. Canada has obviously been much more restrictive in the way that it has dealt with COVID, and I guess everybody will have their own opinion about what is best going forward, since we have been in this for such a long time now. It's not some short-term sort of thing, unfortunately. But I really do believe that this point in time is going to greatly change the face of what is a workplace, what is a work-life balance. And I definitely do see a lot more people becoming digital nomads in the next few years, especially with countries like Georgia, for example, who are making specifically digital nomad visas, where I believe you can stay in the country up to a year, and you just have to prove that you're making at least $2,000 a month and that you're planning to stay there, I think a minimum of 3 months, do a 10-day quarantine or something like that. And it really is a win-win situation, because they are still bringing, foreign money to their country, but it's in a safe way, with a quarantine, with tests, and with people who are going to be able to bring more money into the country. So it's an interesting time. It's an interesting time to be a digital nomad, and I'm really curious to see how things unfold in this year, and I'm excited for my own trip, which is coming up here in a couple of weeks. Once again, a very big thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. I'm gonna have that link in the description so you guys can get a free trial of Skillshare Premium if you're in the first 1,000 people who signs up. So I hope you guys will check it out because it is an amazing resource for creatives and digital nomads alike. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, I hope you are having a fantastic day. Keep being your own kind of beautiful, and I will see you soon. Bye guys.